here to do some end of the year wrap-ups and then favorites, 2022 reading goals. I'm just going to film a bunch of things and then slowly upload them for all of you. It has been a while since I've done a sit-down video. I'm just so excited for the upcoming year being on BookTube and for reading all of the things and not reading as I'm sure as much as I'm hoping I will, but just another year loving books and getting to talk with all of you and leading book discussions. It's just such a lovely, lovely thing to be a part of BookTube. You might be able to tell now that we have entered the very gray days of winter. We've had, I think, 7 gray days in a row. So I don't know how the light will be for filming. Hopefully it is okay, because I know last winter I was filming in this room and I didn't seem to have too many issues. So I'll just tell you briefly about the books that I read in November for this video. November was nonfiction November, and I did read some wonderful nonfiction books. And I want to tell you about those. But also I did read a couple middle grade, and the first one was A Long Way from Chicago and then A Year Down Yonder. These are part of a series, Richard Peck's books, and he is a very prolific middle grade author who now I want to read a lot more. For those of you that enjoy, there's this sort of category of middle grade books that I love, that I would just call like funny boy books. Not books that are just for boys, but often there's a boy who's a protagonist and the humor is a little bit, I don't know, maybe more salt of the earth than it would be in a girl's book. Something about it is just so incredibly appealing to me. If you like the Wednesday Wars or Friendle, or any of Beverly Cleary's books, these are books that are in that kind of category. And also the very eccentric characters that were in this book made me think of a Kate DiCamillo book. Like, it definitely had that atmosphere to it. There, in the first one, which is A Long Way from Chicago, these 2 grandchildren come to stay with their grandmother, who is very unusual and untraditional and just makes it very apparent. But she begrudgingly really loves the little small town that she lives in, and they just go on all sorts of escapades. And then later on, the next book, which is A Year Down Yonder, just the granddaughter is living with her grandmother for a year. And it's all of the adventures that happen on that. I did want to get to Season of Gifts, which is the 3rd in the series, and read it in time for Christmas. But I ended up kind of just burning out a little bit. I am not a series binger. So that one I'll just save for next Christmas, because a lot of it takes place during the Christmas season. Then I finally read the 13th, aka next to last, Wheel of Time book, A Towers of Midnight. This is by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. And this one I'm really shocked, because I know that I tried to read it at the beginning of the year and felt like it really dragged. I was not interested. And then I think the Amazon Prime series coming out was what was the catalyst for me just continuing to make my way through this series. And I absolutely loved this. I'm so excited to see some of these loose ends starting to be tied up, although we still have our major, big battle to end all battles that is coming in the last book, the final book. There is one character whose name is Loyal, and I really wish he got more on-page time, because he's very, very bookish and poetic, and I adore him as a character. So I probably will just never feel that we get enough Loyal time, but I just love him, and so that's my one kind of hang up as the series goes on, that I feel like he is a character who maybe just isn't thought of enough. And then a couple books that I read for nonfiction November. And that first one was A Severe Mercy by Sheldon Vanauken. This book was amazing, profound, very quiet, incredibly generous. And so it's about the author Sheldon Vanauken and his romance with his wife, who her last name was Davies, and so she ended up with the nickname of Davy. So his wife Davy, and their romance, at just such a sweet, sweet romance, and they were so just intoxicatingly in love. And then eventually their conversion to Christianity, and it was a very hesitant, reluctant conversion, and they had lots of questions about it, the ins and outs of faith, and so they end up in Oxford, and they were there at the same time that C.S. Lewis was, and he strikes up a correspondence with C.S. Lewis, and then eventually they did meet and they became very dear friends. And then later on in the book, his wife, Davy, has a terminal illness, and it's all about how they walked through that, how they walked through that dark valley and what came as a result of it. And it was incredibly moving. I wept as I listened to this. I highly recommend the audiobook. The voice, I think, sounds so perfect to narrate A Severe Mercy. So it is just full of, if you like kind of the Sarah Clarkson style of book where beauty pushes back the darkness, this is a book for you. So I highly, highly recommend A Severe Mercy. And then I finally did finish The Brontes by Juliet Barker. And I have very mixed feelings on this. Basically, I felt that Juliet Barker was extremely biased against Charlotte Bronte. And that is saying a lot because Charlotte Bronte is my least favorite out of the Brontes, her personality. And even I was like, wow, you're really hard on Charlotte. And I just thought she made it a little too apparent how much she didn't like Charlotte compared to the other siblings. And so that just really put a bad taste in my mouth the whole time I was reading this. It was a fascinating biography, so incredibly well researched, and just to learn about the Bronte family and to hear little anecdotes that made them feel so much more real to me. Like one time when Charlotte was away from home, Patrick, her father, wrote to her as the family dog. Like the family dog was writing her a letter. And how sweet is that? And that just seems like something that a family you could know now would do. And learning things about Emily Bronte. Emily is, I thought she would be my favorite. And after reading this, she is. So, I mean, favorites. What are favorites? But kind of the sibling that I was like, oh, I really appreciate you. She separated two dogs that had a fight. And while she was separating them, got bitten herself and went inside and branded the wound to make sure that she would be all right. Like, what a lady. So I did love it for all of that. But just that kind of, I felt like it was too much of the author's bias coming through for a nonfiction. I feel like more, if you were going to write my relationship with the Brontes, it would make sense to be more like, oh, I really struggled with these aspects of Charlotte, but it just didn't feel impartial enough for it to be a real favorite book of mine. So loved learning about the Brontes. And then I read A Test of Wills by Ian Rutledge. This was the first in the Ian Rutledge, not A Test of Wills by Ian Rutledge, A Test of Wills by Charles Todd, the first in the Ian Rutledge series. And I am hoping to have a monthly mystery book club, and we're going to go through a series and read through them. But now, after reading through the first two, I don't know if I love this series enough to continue on. So we'll be meeting in January to discuss the third one, and we will see what I think of it. There's a plot device in here that I don't want to say because it is slightly spoilery. I mean, you're going to know it very soon but I want to leave it there for people to find out if they want to find out on their own terms. And I just don't know if I can fully get on board with it. I was not ready for it. The writing is excellent, but I also really look for in mystery series recurring side characters and overarching plot lines that I like to see happening in between or, over the course of the series. That's why I like the series, because I feel like you very much get to know characters in a way that you wouldn't get to if it was just a standalone. So we will see how I feel about the series after reading the third one. I still want to do the monthly mystery book club, so if it does change, I will do a post about it, because I do have a couple series in mind that I would do instead. And then I did a read aloud with my son because he is attending. There is a 7 and 8 year old book club at the library, which I think is just marvelous. And I read aloud to him Maybe Marisol Rainey. And it is about a little girl who has a tree in her backyard, and she is too scared to climb the tree. And it is about her journey to learning bravery and courage and getting to climb this tree. This is an early chapter book. It is very simple, but there was something about it that was really charming. And the family in it I really liked, and her learning bravery. And what was really special is I got an email the day of the book club, and it said that the author would be there. Erin Entrada Kelly would be at the book club meeting. And I was so excited to go in and get to meet her. And then I walk into book club and the librarian says, "Thanks for bringing him, Mom. You can come back in an hour." And so I was not able to meet her. But I had Peter write a note to her about what he liked in the book. And I said, "The author's going to be there. You want to let her know what you liked about it. This is such a special opportunity for you to get to meet her." So he did bring the note with him. And later on, I told him I was jealous that he got to meet the author and I didn't. And he thought that was so cool that I was jealous of something he got to do. So yes, it was a really sweet book. And I really love that this library where we are has a book club for 7 and 8-year-olds. And then they also have a 5 and 6-year-old book club. So very fun. And that was my November reading, a bit of a brief reading month. And then I read like a maniac in December. So I will be wrapping that up after I finish filming this. Thank you always for watching, and I will be back with another video soon. Bye.